Welcome back, guys, and before we get started, make sure you've watched the perfect paragraph structure video, as I'll be referring to it. Also, check out the socials as daily economics revision is being posted. Step 1 is plan. All this means take 2 to 3 minutes after reading the question and just jot down any points that come to your mind. The way I did this was just planning points for and against the question. Planning is neglected by 99% of students, but I think it's definitely one thing you should always include. Okay, so we'll use this question as an example. Discuss the view that protectionist policies should be used to protect UK firms. So my points for this would be something like protects infant industries, protects domestic unemployment, improves the current account, although I don't think that last one's as relevant. And then my points against would be distorts comparative advantage and the advantages of free trade. Now, I haven't looked at economics content in months, so when you do this, you'll be able to generate lots more points. But the whole point of this is that it sets up your essay perfectly. Your essay will now be in a logical, organised manner instead of randomly jumping from one point to another whenever a new point pops into your head. I think this 3-minute investment is absolutely invaluable. Step 2 is your intro. This is extremely overcomplicated by students as they seem to forget that you're not getting marked on the quality of your English, you're only getting marked on your economics. I'll carry on with the original example since I know some people find it useful. So for this, I'd start with giving a broad definition of protectionist policies, then I'd define a trade barrier, and then I'd end with this statement. In this essay, I will discuss why the UK government should and shouldn't use protectionist policies. Like I said before, you're not getting assessed on the quality of your English or the coherence. So all you need to do is hit the marking points, which will be defining 2 key terms, which is just showing your examiner your content knowledge and then giving a brief overview of your essay. Step 3 is writing the paragraphs. Here, all you have to do is use your plan, pick the points which you think are most appropriate and you can write the most about, and then just follow the perfect paragraph structure as we talked about in the last video. It should be in the description and it should be up there somewhere. Now, the main part of these paragraphs will be your evaluation. This is where most of the marks are for the 25 marker, and to get consistently 20 and above, you need to be really solid at evaluation. I have a full video coming out regarding evaluation as I know how tricky it can be. But for now, the general points I used to evaluate were firstly time frame. So how does it affect the short run maybe? And then how does it affect the long run? Secondly, question the assumptions you've made. You know, economics is all about assumptions. For example, the first thing you learn about in economics, ceteris paribus. Third thing is elasticities. So how does it change if the goods or service was elastic versus if it was inelastic? Fourth thing would be winners and losers. So whatever policy you've changed, whatever change you've implemented, how does it affect different levels in society? So how does it affect the shareholders? How does it affect the customers? Then fifth thing is opportunity cost. This can be thrown in nearly anywhere. The silver lining with this and what the examiners are looking for is evaluation throughout the body of your essay, so the end of your paragraphs, and then a big chunk of evaluation at the end, which we'll come to later on. Now, I get a few common questions on this topic, so I'll try to cover them here. So how many diagrams do I need per paragraph? I'd say at least 1, but at max 2. So diagrams, we all know they're great, they really add to your analysis, but they do take quite a lot of time to draw, so I would not go overboard on them. Secondly, how many paragraphs do I need to do? Personally, I used to aim for 3, but on my actual exam day, I only ever ended up doing 2, so I don't think it really matters, 2, 3, just make sure you get your economics in. Okay, so we'll carry on with the example. I've got a trade subsidy diagram above my essay, it should be on the screen somewhere. So, UK government should use protectionist policies like subsidies to protect infant industries. For example, Malawi's government subsidises its infant tobacco industry. Infant industries are small developing industries that are not yet large enough to benefit from economies of scale. This therefore means they have high costs at P1 compared to PW, which is world supply, which is the price which producers who have a comparative advantage are selling at. Due to these high relative costs, infant industries are uncompetitive, so they cannot yet compete on a global scale. So by the government subsidising infant industries, it lowers their cost of production, shifting supply from supply domestic to supply plus subsidy, lowering costs. This increases quantity supplied by domestic producers from Q1 to Q3, decreasing total imports from originally, so without the subsidy, Q1 to Q2, to with the subsidy, Q2 to Q3. Therefore, limiting free trade and causing domestic consumers, instead of buying cheap foreign imports, they substitute to now relatively cheaper domestic goods, reducing free trade and therefore improving the competitiveness of UK firms. However, in evaluation, this depends on the opportunity cost of the subsidy, as unlike other trade barriers like tariffs, which bring in tax revenue, quotas, which have no effect on tax revenue, subsidies actually use up tax revenue. So we've got to question whether it's worth to spend tax revenue on subsidising UK firms when the same tax revenue could be spent on interventionist supply-side policies, which could instead increase productivity, shifting the LRAs out. We could do this by, for example, increasing infrastructure spending. However, also in evaluation, this depends on how producers respond to the subsidy, as they could become over-reliant on the subsidy, therefore become inefficient, therefore not shifting out supply, leading to no change in quantity imported by consumers, so we're not protecting domestic firms. The main takeaway points here are always end your paragraphs with some sort of evaluation, and then always clearly outline your evaluation. The way I did this was just by a simple statement each time, saying, however, in evaluation. This was just to make sure it stood out to my examiner. Step 4 is your final judgment or your outro. This is a great opportunity to include any points you've missed out from your plan, maybe because you didn't have enough time or they just weren't large enough to talk about. So for this, I had a 4-step structure. Firstly is a balanced statement. For this, you just reuse the words from the question, and I just use the same statement every single time. So it was just, overall, I believe there are strong arguments for and against the point, ... So that ... just changes whatever the question is. Step 2 is present one of your strongest arguments for, and then a counter argument. Here, I would always try to include at least one new point. So the structure for this is, on the one hand, you have ... Then when presenting the counter argument, all I would say, however, in evaluation. Step 3 is exactly the same, but instead of arguments for, you're presenting an argument against. So you just present one of your strongest arguments against, and then a counter argument. Again, I would try include at least one new point you haven't used before in your essay, and the structure for this is just the same. So on the other hand, you have ... and then a counter argument saying, however, in evaluation. Step 4 is just the final sentence. I use the same final sentence every time. All you need to do is make sure you reuse the words from the question. So how I did it was, overall, I believe ... and then I'd side with one side of the argument. So for example, for protectionist policies, I'd say, overall, I believe UK should use the protectionist policies. Now, that probably looks really complex, but what you've done there is you've shown content knowledge as you've added new points. You've also added loads of evaluation by adding those counter arguments twice. And then lastly, you've also weighed up both sides of the argument. So you've showed holistic knowledge and then you've sided with one side. So onto the example. Overall, I believe there are strong arguments for and against using protectionist policies to protect UK firms. On the one hand, you can subsidise domestic producers, which protects infant industries. However, this depends on the UK's position on free trade, as the UK is seen to be a champion of free trade and fight protectionism. Therefore, it is very unlikely for the UK to subsidise domestic producers, and I included a free trade diagram here, meaning quantity imported by UK consumers will be Q1 to Q3 instead of other countries that use trade barriers. On the other hand, you have using tariffs to protect domestic employment. I have another diagram here. As shown in the diagram, it increases producer surplus at point A, and C represents the tax revenue gained by the government. However, in evaluation, this does rely on the extent to which a firm relies on foreign imports, as tariffs will increase the price of raw materials for firms, shifting firms SRAS left, decreasing derived demand for labour, decreasing domestic employment. Overall, I believe that the UK should implement protectionist policies to protect UK firms. I understand that this may be slightly overwhelming, so I'll post a PDF down below of a simplified version of this entire video. Anyway, I post daily economics revision on my Instagram and TikTok. Make sure to check them out. Lots of new videos coming, so subscribe to not miss out. Thank you for watching.